If you hold a piece of clear ice carefully shaped like a lens or a crystal, you are holding the potential to start a fire. The concept may sound counterintuitive because ice is the symbol of cold, water, and frost, yet through the principles of light and heat, this simple substance can be transformed into a tool for ignition. The ability to start a fire with ice relies on its transparency and ability to focus sunlight into a concentrated beam. Essentially, the ice acts as a natural magnifying lens, bending and concentrating light in much the same way as a glass lens would. When sunlight passes through this carefully shaped ice, the light converges into a tiny point that concentrates the energy of the sun, producing enough heat to ignite dry tinder or kindling. The key to this process is the purity and clarity of the ice. Bubbles, cracks, and impurities disrupt the focus, scattering light and making it far less effective for creating heat. Creating an ice lens capable of starting a fire is both an art and a science. The ice must first be free of air pockets, which usually means using distilled or carefully filtered water to make a block of ice. Once frozen, the ice is carefully shaped, often into a convex or spherical shape, to bend and focus light precisely. The process requires patience, as even a slight imperfection in the curvature of the ice can disperse the sunlight, preventing ignition. The focused sunlight, when directed at a small pile of tinder such as dry leaves, bark, or moss, gradually heats the material until it reaches its ignition point. Although the process may take longer than a traditional match or lighter, it is a remarkable demonstration of the interplay between light, heat, and the natural properties of water in its solid state. Beyond its practical applications, starting a fire with ice provides insight into the underlying physics of light and energy. Ice functions by refracting light, which means it bends rays as they pass through it. By curving the ice in a lens-like shape, the rays converge, multiplying their intensity at a focal point. This concentration of energy raises the temperature at that single point dramatically, enough to overcome the ignition threshold of flammable materials. Interestingly, the efficiency of the process depends not only on the shape of the ice but also on the angle of the sun and atmospheric conditions. Clear, direct sunlight is essential. Diffuse light on a cloudy day lacks the energy density to initiate combustion, highlighting the delicate balance of environmental factors needed to make ice a functional fire-starting tool. In addition to its practical and scientific significance, the technique of starting a fire with ice has historical and survival applications. Indigenous peoples and early explorers in polar regions understood the potential of using natural resources in unconventional ways. Ice was abundant, and in conditions where traditional fire-starting materials were scarce, the ability to create heat from ice and sunlight could mean the difference between survival and exposure. The skill requires keen observation, patience, and an understanding of natural principles that modern technology often obscures. The process underscores human ingenuity in adapting to harsh environments, turning what appears to be an obstacle, ice and extreme cold, into a tool of energy and survival. Moreover, the act of creating fire from ice illustrates the concept of energy transformation, a fundamental principle in physics. In this scenario, solar energy carried by sunlight is focused and converted into thermal energy at the tinder's surface. It demonstrates how energy can change forms without the introduction of chemical fuels, relying purely on natural phenomena. This realization has broader implications in understanding energy efficiency, sustainability, and the potential for harnessing environmental resources in creative ways. Even in a world dominated by modern fire-starting methods, the simplicity and elegance of starting fire with ice remain a powerful example of how human understanding of physics can manipulate the elements in unexpected and ingenious ways. The skill also highlights the importance of precision and technique in survival scenarios. The ice must be molded to maximize the focusing effect, the tinder must be carefully prepared to catch fire quickly, and the sunlight must be properly aligned to hit the focal point. Every element plays a critical role, and failure in any step can render the effort useless. It is a reminder that in nature, even seemingly magical feats are governed by consistent rules that can be studied, understood, and applied. Ice, a substance we associate with cold and preservation, becomes in this context a conduit for heat and combustion, illustrating the surprising versatility of natural materials. Finally, starting fire with ice invites contemplation of the paradoxical relationships in nature. cold becomes a vehicle for heat, transparency enables energy concentration, and a solid can generate ignition. This paradox challenges our intuitive understanding of elements and encourages a deeper exploration of how physical properties interact. The practice encourages not just technical skill but also imaginative thinking, illustrating that the natural world contains hidden potentials that can be unlocked with careful observation and application of scientific principles. The seemingly impossible act of creating fire from ice stands as a testament to the profound interconnectedness of natural forces, energy, and human ingenuity. The idea of starting a fire with ice expands the scope of human ingenuity and resourcefulness, particularly in extreme environments where conventional fire-starting materials are scarce. For early humans, particularly those in polar or Arctic regions, having the knowledge and skill to create fire from ice could have been the difference between life and death. In these environments, where vegetation is minimal, and dry tinder may be hard to come by, ice could serve as both a source of heat and a tool for survival. In many ways, the ability to harness such an unusual natural resource demonstrates the adaptability of humans to diverse, often inhospitable environments. When modern tools like matches or lighters are not available, knowledge of unconventional methods like ice fire starting becomes an invaluable skill in the survivalist's toolkit. In the context of survival, understanding how to start a fire with ice also requires a deeper understanding of weather patterns, temperature fluctuations, and the behavior of ice itself. The creation of fire in these extreme conditions does not solely depend on direct sunlight. It also relies on the environmental context, such as the presence of wind, cloud cover, and temperature changes throughout the day. In Arctic or high-altitude regions, the sun's angle plays a crucial role in the effectiveness of the ice as a magnifying lens. In the winter months, the days may be short, and the sun lower in the sky, making it more difficult to achieve the necessary concentration of light to generate the heat required for ignition. Even so, under the right conditions, the skill of starting a fire with ice can transform the ice from a cold, inert substance into a powerful tool for warmth, cooking, and signaling. In more temperate climates, the concept of using ice to start a fire can also serve as an educational tool to teach about optical physics and the behavior of light. The lens-like qualities of ice are a striking example of how certain materials, in their purest form, can focus light in ways that might not be immediately obvious. By studying the formation of ice and its refractive properties, students and scientists alike can gain insight into light transmission, refraction, and focused energy. In fact, the process of shaping ice into an effective fire-starting tool is a practical demonstration of how optics work, how light bends as it passes through materials of varying densities, and how this bending can be harnessed to generate heat. This connection between nature, optics, and survival skills adds a layer of sophistication to the otherwise basic idea of starting a fire. It underscores how everyday materials, when understood properly, can be manipulated to achieve extraordinary results. The use of ice as a fire-starting tool also speaks to a larger philosophy of self-reliance and sustainability. In a world increasingly dependent on technology and manufactured goods, the ability to create fire from something as elemental as ice forces us to reconsider our relationship with natural resources. If humans can harness the elements around them without relying on synthetic tools or materials, then they gain a deeper sense of autonomy and resilience. In modern survival training, instructors teach the importance of using natural resources to their fullest potential. This often means learning to work with materials like wood, flint, or ice, elements that are available in the environment and require minimal processing or external input. The knowledge of how to start a fire with ice highlights the broader principle of working with nature, not against it. It encourages an approach to survival that values simplicity and resourcefulness over dependence on technology, which may fail or be unavailable in dire situations. Additionally, the principle of starting a fire with ice connects to more practical survival strategies, such as using fire for signaling in an emergency. In remote areas or wilderness settings, signaling for help becomes crucial when other communication tools are unavailable. The ability to create a fire with ice provides a valuable skill for individuals lost in harsh conditions or stranded in the wilderness. If one were to find themselves trapped in a snowy landscape without fire-starting materials, ice could be a life-saving tool. Beyond survival, Starting a fire with ice also demonstrates how human ingenuity can be used for the creation of warmth and light in situations where other options are inaccessible. There is also a growing interest in using this technique for educational and recreational purposes. The art of fire starting with ice has captured the curiosity of both survival enthusiasts and scientists alike. It has been featured in various survival shows, documentaries, and scientific experiments. In these settings, the process of creating fire from ice is not only a demonstration of practical survival skills but also a celebration of the natural world's hidden potential. In classrooms, it serves as an engaging way to illustrate the laws of physics and the power of natural materials. For people interested in outdoor recreation or bushcraft, mastering the art of ice fire starting is a challenging and rewarding skill to add to their repertoire. It offers an alternative method of fire making that adds an element of adventure and wonder, particularly when performed in extreme or challenging environments. Interestingly, the concept of fire starting with ice extends beyond the bounds of Earth. It raises questions about the potential for survival techniques in space or on other planets. If humans were to establish colonies on icy moons like Europa or Titan, they would need to rely on whatever resources were available in their surroundings. In such environments, the knowledge of how to start a fire from ice could be critical in maintaining warmth, cooking food, and producing light. This kind of adaptability would be vital in future space missions, where astronauts might have to use local resources and innovative ways to survive in the harsh conditions of alien worlds. The basic principles that govern fire starting with ice, whether on Earth or in space, are universal, offering insights into how human ingenuity can overcome the challenges posed by extreme environments. The idea of fire starting with ice also invites ecological reflection. In a world where environmental concerns are becoming increasingly urgent, the ability to use natural materials like ice to create fire instead of relying on manufactured goods or fuels could be seen as a step toward more sustainable practices. By embracing low-impact techniques and utilizing what nature provides, we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and other environmentally harmful resources. In this context, the process of making fire from ice could symbolize a broader movement toward sustainability and ecological awareness. It reminds us that survival, both in the wild and in the modern world, can be achieved through harmony with nature rather than through consumption and destruction. The art of starting fire with ice encapsulates a wide range of scientific, survival, and philosophical principles. It challenges our conventional understanding of materials and resources, demonstrating how even the most unlikely substances, like frozen water, can serve as tools for creating heat and light. Whether as a survival technique, an educational tool, or a step toward more sustainable living, the knowledge of how to start a fire with ice encourages a deeper appreciation of the natural world and our ability to work in harmony with it. The concept of starting a fire with ice is not just a theoretical curiosity or survivalist novelty, it also provides a window into the larger context of how humans interact with and adapt to the natural world. When considered in a broader scope, this technique highlights the evolving relationship between technology, nature, and human ingenuity. In a world increasingly dominated by synthetic tools and materials, using a naturally occurring resource like ice to create fire invites reflection on the value of simplicity and the ability to harness the environment in its rawest form. The ice-to-fire method serves as a reminder that, even in our highly industrialized world, the most basic elements of nature, such as water and sunlight, still contain remarkable untapped potential. One of the most compelling aspects of this skill is its connection to natural resourcefulness, the idea that even in dire circumstances, humans can rely on their understanding of natural forces to solve complex problems. The ability to start a fire with ice is a perfect example of how basic knowledge of physics and the environment can be used to address survival challenges. For people in harsh climates, where resources are limited and conventional fire-starting materials like dry wood or matches may be hard to find, this technique offers an innovative solution. It encourages the development of a mindset focused on working with available resources rather than depending on the technologies and tools that are often taken for granted. This attitude of resourcefulness and adaptability is central to surviving in extreme conditions, where improvisation and practical knowledge often make the difference between life and death. In a similar vein, the use of ice to create fire connects to the larger concept of low-tech innovation. In an era of rapid technological advancement, it's easy to overlook the power of simple, elegant solutions. The fire-starting technique with ice is a prime example of how minimal intervention, when applied with knowledge and skill, can yield powerful results. Unlike the energy-intensive methods we use today, such as starting fires with chemical accelerants or electronic igniters, this process relies entirely on manipulating natural properties to achieve a desired outcome. It's an innovation rooted in understanding natural processes, rather than creating new technology. In a world where resources are increasingly finite, the ability to think creatively with minimal technological reliance could prove essential for sustainable living and adaptation to changing environments. Looking further into the future, the ice fire technique holds potential for environmental education and self-sufficiency programs. In regions facing increasing climate instability or even urban areas where people are disconnected from nature, understanding how to use basic elements of the natural world for survival could be an invaluable life skill. The resurgence of interest in back-to-basics living, whether through survival training, homesteading, or outdoor education, brings this kind of knowledge into the spotlight. Teaching people how to survive using the resources available to them, as opposed to relying on store-bought products, instills both a practical and philosophical connection to the environment. Ice, as an element often associated with cold and desolation, becomes a symbol of sustainability and ingenuity in the face of environmental challenges. Additionally, starting a fire with ice opens up intriguing possibilities for climate resilience, the ability to adapt to and thrive in the face of changing climate conditions. As global temperatures fluctuate and weather patterns become more erratic, the ability to utilize local, renewable resources for practical purposes becomes increasingly important. Ice, snow, and cold weather materials are becoming more abundant in certain parts of the world due to global warming, making it crucial to understand how these elements can be leveraged. For instance, in areas affected by harsh winter conditions or in regions experiencing rising snowfall due to changing climates, the skill to manipulate ice for fire starting could be integrated into disaster preparedness strategies. In an emergency situation, individuals who are equipped with the knowledge of how to turn an abundant, albeit seemingly inhospitable, resource like ice into a tool for heat could vastly improve their chances of survival. Another way to consider the impact of this technique is through its historical and cultural significance. Throughout history, humans have developed a variety of methods for starting fire, ranging from friction-based techniques to the use of flint and steel. While these methods were honed over centuries, the concept of using ice, an element that appears to resist the creation of heat, adds a fascinating layer to the cultural narrative of human innovation. In indigenous cultures living in the far north or Arctic regions, the ability to use the available environment for survival was vital. While there is little documented evidence of traditional fire-starting methods with ice, the concept could very well have been an implicit understanding in some of these cultures, who were masters of adapting to extreme cold. By studying how ice could be used to create fire, we gain insight into the ingenuity that is embedded in the survival techniques of those who lived and thrived in some of the planet's most unforgiving climates. Additionally, in the realm of disaster preparedness and emergency response, this knowledge could serve as a critical life-saving skill. In remote areas, particularly those that experience severe winters or are cut off from the grid, having the ability to create fire from ice could be a literal lifesaver. In the event of a natural disaster such as a snowstorm or earthquake that isolates people from emergency resources, knowing how to use the environment to your advantage can significantly increase survival chances. The ability to start a fire using the resources around you, even in the coldest and harshest conditions, could be the difference between freezing to death and surviving until help arrives. Furthermore, in areas prone to long winters, disaster preparedness courses might integrate such knowledge into their curricula, enhancing the readiness of individuals to survive in severe cold. The process of using ice to start a fire also encourages a broader perspective on adaptability and problem solving. When placed in an environment with limited resources, humans must often think outside the box to survive. The ability to turn ice, something associated with cold and death, into a source of life-giving warmth and light requires a mindset that embraces both ingenuity and resourcefulness. This mindset is applicable not only in extreme survival situations but also in everyday life. Whether it's finding new ways to conserve energy, repurposing materials, or using natural resources in unexpected ways, the principles demonstrated in ice fire starting can be applied across a wide array of fields. From architecture to energy sustainability. It encourages an approach to problem solving that emphasizes creativity, knowledge of natural systems, and the ability to innovate under pressure. In the context of space exploration, knowledge of how to use ice for fire starting could also have long-term implications. While ice in space is often associated with cold, it also represents a potential resource for life support. In environments like Mars or the Moon, where human colonies may eventually be established, water, and potentially ice, could serve as a critical resource for both hydration and energy production. The ability to convert ice into fire for warmth, cooking, or even electricity could become a vital aspect of future space colonization. Understanding and mastering these natural processes, whether on Earth or in outer space, could help make long-term human habitation of other planets a reality. In conclusion, the ability to start a fire with ice is more than just a curiosity, it is a powerful reminder of human adaptability, the transformative power of knowledge, and the interconnectedness of natural systems. It highlights the untapped potential of the world around us and encourages both practical survival skills and philosophical reflections on our relationship with nature. Whether for survival in extreme environments, educational purposes, or future space exploration, the technique of creating fire from ice speaks to the ingenuity and resourcefulness that humans have always used to thrive against the odds. As we consider the profound implications of starting a fire with ice, we begin to explore its potential beyond immediate survival scenarios, extending into broader applications in modern technology, space exploration, and environmental sustainability. In the context of space exploration, the skill of utilizing ice for fire starting takes on an entirely new dimension. Space missions, especially those aimed at colonizing the Moon, Mars, or other celestial bodies, face a range of challenges that demand innovative solutions. Resources in these alien environments are scarce, and the ability to use local materials effectively could be the key to long-term survival. Ice, whether harvested from polar regions on Earth, other planets, or moons, could serve as a critical resource. On the Moon, for instance, where water is believed to exist in the form of ice at the poles, astronauts might need to extract and melt this ice for both drinking water and life support systems. If humans can learn to harness ice not only for survival but also for energy production, the concept of starting a fire with ice becomes one part of a larger strategy for sustaining life in space. In such environments, energy production becomes paramount. Currently, space agencies rely on solar panels, nuclear power, and chemical fuels to meet the energy needs of astronauts. However, these methods are not without their challenges. Solar power is only available when a spacecraft or habitat is exposed to sunlight, and nuclear power is a heavy, complex solution with significant safety concerns. The ability to generate energy from ice, especially through thermal processes, could offer an alternative, sustainable way to meet energy demands. For example, if ice can be used to produce heat, this heat could be harnessed to generate electricity via thermoelectric generators, or it could be used directly to power heaters and life support systems in space habitats. This concept opens the door to a new paradigm in which ice is not simply a passive material but a dynamic resource that fuels human exploration beyond Earth. Additionally, the use of ice for fire starting and energy production on other planets could also enhance our understanding of extraterrestrial resource utilization. The Moon and Mars, in particular, may have abundant sources of water ice that could be essential for sustaining future colonies. Water extracted from ice could be used for drinking, crop irrigation, and hygiene. It could also be separated into hydrogen and oxygen through electrolysis, providing fuel for rockets and breathing air for astronauts. The unique process of starting a fire with ice, which may seem like an Earth-based survival technique, could be adapted into the infrastructure of off-planet habitats to produce heat, cook food, and generate energy. Harnessing the energy of ice might enable long-term missions without the need for heavy fuel supplies to be sent from Earth, offering the possibility of self-sufficient outposts on distant worlds. in the realm of environmental sustainability on Earth, the lessons learned from using ice as a fire-starting tool could contribute to broader conversations about renewable energy and natural resource conservation. As global temperatures rise and climate conditions become more unpredictable, the need for sustainable living practices is more pressing than ever. Starting a fire with ice may seem like a novelty, but it highlights a larger principle of working with natural forces, rather than relying on synthetic solutions. The same ingenuity that turns a piece of ice into a fire could be applied to other aspects of environmental management. For example, the principles behind ice as a heat concentrator could lead to innovations in solar energy or passive heating technologies that rely on local environmental resources to regulate temperature and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. As more people seek to minimize their carbon footprints, the idea of using natural elements like ice to generate energy could inspire further exploration into low-tech, low-impact solutions to modern energy challenges. Looking to the future of sustainable architecture, the concept of using ice for energy and fire starting could be integrated into eco-friendly building designs. Imagine structures in cold climates that take advantage of the natural properties of ice, water, and sunlight to provide heat without traditional heating systems. Buildings could be designed with ice-based thermal storage, where ice is used to absorb heat during the day and slowly release it at night, regulating the indoor temperature. This type of architecture would reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, helping to mitigate the environmental impact of heating systems. The principle of using ice as an energy source could also inspire further research into how other natural materials, such as soil, clay, or salt, can be used to store and release energy in building systems. Creating a new wave of energy-efficient, sustainable living. Another important area where this knowledge could apply is disaster relief and humanitarian efforts. In regions affected by natural disasters, where infrastructure has been destroyed and access to resources is limited, the ability to use available materials for survival becomes even more critical. In cold weather disasters, such as snowstorms, floods, or earthquakes in northern regions, knowing how to start a fire with ice could be a valuable skill for survivors. Relief workers and disaster response teams might consider incorporating this technique into their training programs, as it provides an alternative method of creating warmth. Cooking food, or signaling for help in areas where traditional tools may not be available. By equipping people in disaster-prone regions with this knowledge, they could potentially save lives in situations where other options are unavailable. Additionally, using ice in this manner connects to a larger movement toward low-tech survival tools that are grounded in nature's simplicity rather than relying on modern technology. As the world continues to confront environmental degradation, energy shortages, and geopolitical instability, there is growing interest in tools and skills that prioritize self-sufficiency and minimalism. In this context, the ability to turn ice, an abundant natural resource, into a means of survival and energy production could resonate as a symbol of resilience and sustainability. These tools offer a form of empowerment, enabling individuals to take charge of their own survival without being dependent on external systems that might break down in times of crisis. The concept of fire starting with ice is part of a larger cultural shift that emphasizes local, sustainable solutions to the challenges posed by climate change and resource scarcity. Finally, the practice of using ice for fire starting invites us to reconsider our human relationship with the natural world. It speaks to an evolving consciousness that values not just what we can extract from the environment, but how we can work in harmony with it. This practice connects us to the ancient traditions of using natural materials in creative ways, while simultaneously pushing the boundaries of what is possible with modern science. By exploring the fundamental properties of ice and other natural resources, we can learn to approach the world with a sense of wonder and curiosity, discovering new ways to live more sustainably, even in the harshest of environments. Whether on Earth or in outer space, this practice of innovation rooted in nature reminds us of our potential to adapt and thrive, regardless of the challenges we face.